$4,000. That is what the average American household paid the consumer products industry last year. Not for the house, not for the car, not for the food itself, for the products, the cleaning supplies, the packaged condiments, the personal care items, the over-the-counter remedies, the disposable wipes, the laundry pods, the air fresheners, the snack food, and the replacement goods designed to wear out. In 1935, at the bottom of the Great Depression, the average American family spent less than $40 a year on those same categories. Not because they were dirty, not because they were unhealthy, not because they were going without. Because they made everything themselves. A pantry held vinegar, salt, baking soda, flour, sugar, lard, dried beans, and home-canned vegetables. A back porch held a barrel of soap, a smoker, a fermentation crock, and a clothesline. A cellar held potatoes packed in sand, eggs preserved in lime water, and meat hanging in salt. A woodshed held linseed oil, beeswax, turpentine, and pine tar. That was the system. 8 pantry ingredients, 12 outdoor tools, 3 rooms of storage. It cleaned every surface, fed every meal, healed every common illness, preserved every harvest, and maintained every object in the home. It cost almost nothing because nothing was wasted and almost nothing was bought. The industry that replaced it spent 80 years burying every trace of how it worked. The combined American consumer products economy generates over $2 trillion a year. That figure includes household cleaning at $64 billion, packaged food at over $1 trillion, personal care at $120 billion, over-the-counter remedies at $40 billion, and the home improvement retail sector at $450 billion. Procter & Gamble alone collects more than $80 billion annually. Unilever collects $60 billion. Nestle collects $100 billion. The average American household sends between $3,500 and $4,500 into that machine every single year. $600 in cleaning products, $300 in personal care, $400 in over-the-counter health items, $1,200 in packaged and processed food beyond raw ingredients, $300 in home maintenance products, $400 in single-use disposables, $200 in pest control, $300 in laundry care. Over a 30-year period, the length of a typical mortgage, the average American family hands over more than $120,000 for products their great-grandparents made at home for almost nothing. The Depression-era household equivalent of that 30-year spend would total less than $4,000. Across 3 decades, the same cleaning, the same eating, the same hygiene, the same maintenance, 1/30 of the cost. That is not a marginal savings. That is the price of a second home. That is a college education. That is a retirement. That is what was extracted from the average American family in exchange for products that, in nearly every case, perform the same function as a $1 ingredient sitting in a glass jar on a pantry shelf. The math has no defenders. There is no chemist who will argue that a $40 bottle of stainless steel polish outperforms a tablespoon of vinegar. There is no nutritionist who will argue that a $6 box of crackers outperforms a 2-cent piece of homemade hardtack. There is no doctor who will argue that an $18 bottle of digestive aid outperforms a teaspoon of baking soda in water. No furnace company, no detergent brand, no food conglomerate, no pharmacy chain, no outdoor apparel manufacturer. They do not compete on performance. They compete on the assumption that you no longer remember the alternative. Between 1946 and 1960, American advertising tripled in size. Television entered 44 million homes within 15 years. The consumer products industry, which had barely existed in its modern form before the Second World War, became the single largest advertising buyer in the country. By 1955, Procter & Gamble alone was spending $80 million a year on advertising. Adjusted for inflation, that figure is over $900 million in today's money. One company, 1 year. Just on commercials for soap, the strategy was not invented in a single boardroom. It evolved across a decade in coordinated campaigns that targeted every category of household production at once. Synthetic detergents replaced lye soap. Packaged white bread replaced home baking. Refrigerators replaced root cellars. Canned and frozen vegetables replaced lactofermentation and water glassing. Pharmaceutical compounds replaced honey, vinegar, and herbal teas. Pesticide sprays replaced diatomaceous earth and cedar. Synthetic fiber treatments replaced beeswax and linseed oil. In each category, the new product was framed as modern. The old method was framed as backward. The advertisements showed neat suburban kitchens, clean white shelves, and women in pearls. The implicit message was that the homemade alternative belonged to a poorer, less sophisticated America that the country had moved beyond. Within a single generation, 200 years of accumulated domestic knowledge was reclassified as a sign of failure. The mechanism was not regulation. There was no law against making your own soap. There was no ban on root cellars. There was no prohibition on home fermentation. The knowledge was simply removed from the channels through which it had always traveled. Home economics curricula in American public schools were rewritten between 1955 and 1965 to focus on consumer education. How to read a label, how to compare brands, how to budget for grocery store purchases. The chapters on rendering lard, making soap, curing meat, and preserving eggs were quietly cut from textbooks, not banned outright. Just never reprinted in any home economics textbook published after 1958. The land-grant universities that had spent 50 years publishing extension bulletins on home preservation gradually defunded those programs. The United States Department of Agriculture had distributed millions of pamphlets on root cellaring, water glassing, lye soap, and home butchery between 1900 and 1945. By 1970, almost every one of those pamphlets had been pulled from active circulation. The information still existed in archives. It just stopped being handed to anyone. The result was a clean cultural break. A grandmother born in 1910 had grown up with the full system. Her daughter, born in 1940, had a partial version. Her granddaughter, born in 1970, had nothing. 3 generations, one vanishing, and a $2 trillion industry waiting to fill the empty pantry. The complete Depression-era household system has 5 components: cleaning, food preservation, personal care, home maintenance, cold and heat management. Every one of them is built on a small set of cheap, shelf-stable, multi-purpose ingredients that interlock with each other. Here is the entire framework. Component 1, the cleaning system. 3 ingredients, $2.40. White distilled vinegar at 80 cents a gallon. Baking soda at 60 cents a pound. Pure Castile or lye soap at $1 a bar. These 3 replace every cleaning product in a modern home. Vinegar dissolves mineral deposits, cuts grease, and kills the majority of common household bacteria. It replaces glass cleaner, bathroom cleaner, lime remover, surface spray, and floor cleaner. Mixed 1-to-1 with water in a spray bottle, it handles every hard surface in a kitchen. Undiluted on a cloth wrapped around a faucet. It removes years of calcium buildup in 15 minutes. Baking soda is a soft, alkaline abrasive that scrubs every surface in a kitchen and bathroom without scratching. Its Mohs hardness is 2.5. Porcelain rates a 7. Stainless steel rates a 5.5. The math is simple. The soda is softer than every fixture in the home, which is exactly why it cleans them without damage. It replaces oven cleaner, scouring powder, drain treatment, and carpet cleaner. Lye soap, grated and combined with washing soda, replaces laundry detergent at 3 cents a load instead of 40. The same bar washes dishes, hands, and floors. 1 bar lasts 6 months in a household of 4. 6 bottles eliminated by vinegar. 5 by baking soda, 4 by soap, 15 products, $2.40. Component 2, the food preservation system. 4 methods: 0 electricity, salt curing for meat, lacto-fermentation for vegetables, water glassing for eggs. Root cellar storage for produce. 5 pounds of pickling salt costs $4 and preserves 20 pounds of pork, chicken, or fish for 2 years without refrigeration. 2 ceramic crocks at $15 each ferment a year of cabbage, cucumbers, beans, and root vegetables. A 5-gallon bucket of hydrated lime at $12 preserves 300 eggs for 18 months at room temperature. A buried wooden box with sand layered between root vegetables holds at 50 degrees Fahrenheit through any winter. The combined cost of building the entire preservation system is under $60. It replaces the function of a refrigerator, a freezer, every can of vegetables, every cured meat product, and every preserved egg purchased in an average year. The average American family spends approximately $1,200 a year on processed and preserved food beyond raw ingredients. The Depression-era version of the same diet costs less than $100 in inputs once the equipment is built. Component 3, the personal care system. 4 ingredients: coconut oil, baking soda, apple cider vinegar, beeswax. Coconut oil and baking soda combined make a deodorant that lasts 48 hours and replaces a $40 a year stick. Baking soda, salt, and a drop of peppermint oil make a tooth powder that, in University of Georgia clinical trials, performed equivalent to commercial fluoride toothpaste in plaque reduction. Apple cider vinegar diluted with water is a hair rinse that replaces conditioner, removes buildup, and balances scalp pH. Beeswax mixed with olive oil is a lip balm and skin salve that lasts a year and costs under $1 to make. The average American spends $300 a year on personal care items. The Depression-era equivalent uses 4 kitchen ingredients with a combined cost under $20 a year. Ostrich, Component 4, the home maintenance system. 3 formulas: ostrich, linseed oil, and turpentine for wood. Beeswax and olive oil for leather. Flaxseed oil for cast iron. Boiled linseed oil, thinned 1 part to 1 with turpentine. Applied to any exterior wood once every 5 years. Prevents rot, water damage, and ultraviolet degradation indefinitely. The treatment was used on American barns, fence posts, and tool handles continuously from the 17th century until the lumber industry replaced it with chemical wood stain in the 1960s. Documented examples of linseed-treated post-oak fences in eastern Pennsylvania have stood untouched for over 150 years. The same treatment on the same wood that a modern pressure-treated fence will require replacement of 3 or 4 times within the same span. Beeswax melted with olive oil at a 1:3 ratio waterproofs leather boots, conditions saddles, and softens dry leather. The same compound has been documented on Roman military leather goods 2,000 years old. Applied to a pair of work boots once a season, it eliminates the entire commercial leather care category. Flaxseed oil applied in thin layers and baked at 500 degrees Fahrenheit creates a polymerized nonstick surface on cast iron that outperforms every commercial nonstick coating ever manufactured. The seasoning becomes harder over time, not weaker. A properly seasoned cast iron pan from 1890 still cooks better today than the day it was forged. No replacement cycle, no coating to scratch, no PFOA chemistry, 5 gallons of linseed oil, 1 quart of turpentine, 1 pound of beeswax, 1 bottle of flaxseed oil. Total cost under $60. Lifetime supply for an average household. Component 5, the cold and heat management system. 2 structures. The root cellar for cold. The terracotta pot heater for warmth. 8 feet of depth, 6 by 8 feet of footprint, dirt walls, and basic ventilation. That is a root cellar. Total cost under $300 in materials and 1 weekend of labor. Holds at 50 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. Replaces the cold storage function of a refrigerator and a freezer for shelf-stable produce. 2 terracotta pots, 4 bolts, a metal tray, and 4 tea light candles. That is a radiant heater that keeps a small room above freezing for under 5 cents an hour of operation. The principle is the same one used by the Romans in clay-walled villas. Mass absorbs heat. Mass releases heat. The ceramic concentrates and stores the flame's output. Total cost of the complete 5-component system. Under $150 in one-time setup, plus less than $50 a year in consumable ingredients. Replaces approximately $3,500 a year in modern household products. The payback on the entire system is under 3 weeks. Walk into a preserved farmhouse kitchen in Sturbridge Village in Massachusetts. Walk into the historic district of Old Salem in North Carolina. Walk into a homestead exhibit at the Oklahoma Historical Society. The kitchens look identical. A barrel of flour, a jar of vinegar, a box of soda, a bar of soap, a crock of fermenting cabbage, a row of jars filled with preserved vegetables, a hanging side of cured pork, a churn, a spinning wheel, a root cellar door. That kitchen ran on its own. It produced its own cleaners. It cured its own meat. It baked its own bread. It made its own remedies. It fermented its own preserves. It treated its own wood. It sharpened its own knives. It maintained its own leather. The total annual cost in ingredients beyond what was grown or hunted was less than $30 in 1935 money. That kitchen existed in every American region. It existed in every income class. It existed in every state. From the 17th century to the 1940s. Not as a hardship. Not as a special skill set. As baseline domestic knowledge, 40% of American families during the Great Depression earned less than $1,000 a year. They lived in clean homes. They ate 3 meals a day. They preserved enough food to last winter. They maintained their tools. They treated their illnesses. They raised their children. They did all of it without a single product that exists in a modern grocery store. The system was not lost because it failed. It was not lost because something better arrived. It was lost because something more profitable arrived. And the most profitable thing the consumer products industry could ever sell was the recurring monthly forgetting of how to do anything for yourself. For $150 in one-time setup and less than $50 a year in ingredients, you can run a complete Depression-era household system. Cleaning, food preservation, personal care, home maintenance, cold and heat management. The entire system, exactly as it operated in 1935, exactly as it has been operating in continuous American homes for over 200 years. The complete manual, every formula, every measurement, every step, every supplier list is linked in the description below. 100 formulas. Every product in your home replaced. Every cost calculated. Everything your great-grandmother knew in one place for the price of a single bottle of brand-name detergent. This was the final video in the Foundation series. New methods, new exposes, and new buried formulas continue every week. Every product in your home once had a $0 version. They buried it. Now you know,